We had to physically extract him from the vehicle.
Did you consider that he may not fully understand the English language when you extracted him from the vehicle?
Do you think that you can do field sobriety
I didn't.
exercises without falling?
I don't know if that crossed my mind or not.
Why not?
I'm okay with doing them. You want to do them? Okay.
I live right here.
All right.
You just watched the body camera footage of my client being arrested for DUI and resisting without violence. We're about to go into the courtroom proceeding that happened later on at the defense motion to suppress, and I'm going to teach you how the Constitution works in a criminal defense case and how you can use the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protections to get out of a criminal charge. That's up next. If you're enjoying this content, hit the like button, give me a thumbs up there, and subscribe to the channel. We got a lot more stuff coming forward. We're still working on putting together the breath test video. I got some more cases lined up. How about a cop that stabs a lawyer during a deposition? Want to hear about that one? We got it. Before we dive into the video, let me introduce the characters that we have here. First, we got the judge.
Counsel, please enter your appearances.
Then we got the prosecutor.
The defendant may be ill or impaired.
The police officer.
Well, that's your opinion. So.
And myself.
I'm asking yours.
So we've already completed the direct examination portion of the motion to suppress. The state's already asked the officer all their questions. They've laid out their best case. And now we're moving on to the cross-examination where I get the opportunity to shoot holes in their case. Now, the primary issue here is a search and seizure issue. I'm alleging that this was an illegal stop, an improper traffic stop, and they should not have detained him. The result of that would be the exclusion of all the evidence obtained from the stop. Let's get to that now.
Any cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to backtrack and go through a little bit how your testimony came out originally on direct. You have a significant amount of law enforcement experience, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said in this particular day you were recalling for, or you were responding to a call for service, correct?
That's correct.
Now, what is a call for service?
Somebody calls either 911 or the non-emergency, or there's different avenues they can text now. But a call was generated, and we were responding to a call.
All right. And how was that call classified?
I don't remember. You'd have to pull up the CAD screen and see how it was classified.
And so it could be man down is one of the options.
I don't know. I can look it up for you if you would like.
Is man down one of the options of the classification of a call?
Of a call, yes, it is.
And abandoned vehicle may be another type of classification. And when you get those dispatch calls, you have to go to the scene and then investigate and verify. Sometimes the information you get is originally accurate, correct?
That is correct.
Did you ever speak to anyone about this before you arrived on scene?
No.
Did you?
No, I don't believe so.
So did you speak to the dispatcher about what you're going to do?
I don't know. You'd have to pull up the radio transmission. I don't recall any conversation with the county.
Do you recall any?
But I don't know.
Do you recall any details that you were given?
Just what's in the CAD screen, the CAD notes.
Okay.
And I don't recall what those are, but I said they're public record and they can be retrieved.
Sure. So in this particular case, where you're responding to was a apartment complex?
What's your
Apartment
address?
complex, townhome, something of that sort.
Private property?
No, sir.
Yeah, past the gated area, it would be private property.
So on the where the vehicle was stopped was public property then?
How much
It
you been
belongs to
drinking?
apartment complex, but
Couple beers.
I mean,
What's a couple?
Couple beers.
Is it owned by the government?
Couple
it
beers.
doesn't.
Is there any reason why you're sleeping in your
I don't know
van?
who. I don't know who it belongs to.
Is there any reason why you're trying to back away while we're trying to get you to
No,
stop?
sir. No.
It's a
It doesn't make a difference.
All right. Do you think that you're
Well,
impaired?
I'll make that determination, okay?
Yes.
So
Do you think
you
you're
pull
not
into a
impaired?
driveway
Listen,
access,
we're not going to tell you again. Take your
Correct?
hands out of your pocket.
That's correct.
and in that driveway access, there is a van that you see,
I am.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where I am.
And that van is stopped approximately
You can do some
how far from the
sobriety
gate?
exercises?
5 to 10 feet.
No, sir.
You're not
And there is some type of access code box where someone could gain access to the gated community.
No.
I'm not really sure. I'm
Objection, irrelevant.
Okay, The objection there was irrelevant. So she's saying that my question about this traffic control box isn't relevant to establish any of the facts moving forward. I don't think she understands what my theory of defense is. Usually what will happen is if the question seems like it's out there a little ways, the judge will make a determination on whether to give you some leeway or not. And if you get the feeling it's not going to go, not necessarily it's not going to go your way, but the judge will give you leeway in order to ask a couple questions that maybe seem a little bit off track. So the judge overruled this objection, but that's a suggestion I need to get back on point and trying to figure things out or bring it full circle.
Where he would be with his window down trying to gain access to the community.
Oh yeah, I wasn't suggesting that it was. I wasn't suggesting. So there's somewhere between his van and there's another vehicle there, correct?
Yeah, the other vehicle pulls up. The other vehicle, from my understanding of my conversation with her, she was there. I guess she had drove down the road because she didn't know what was going on, called us, and then she had came back when she saw us arrive.
So that vehicle wasn't there when you arrived on scene?
Not that I noticed.
And when you arrived on scene, were you by yourself?
I had a partner.
Who is your partner?
We call him, his last name is unpronounceable, and his first name's also very complicated, but I could spell it for you.
Deputy, is that good enough?
Yeah, deputy. That's what we all call him.
That'll work for now, I guess. Do you recall who was the first to arrive on scene?
I believe we got there at the same time.
And
we pulled up at the exact same time.
When you arrived on scene, was your body camera activated already?
No, it didn't get activated until you hear the audio come across.
And that's when did you manually activate that or something trigger it?
No, it's manually activated.
So there's approximately 30 to 60 seconds, I believe, of video with no audio, correct?
That's correct.
And that's just the natural functionality of it. It doesn't record the audio.
That is, it doesn't record audio until you click the button to you get it.
And so then it
and
backtracks.
Then it goes back 60 seconds of just video.
And in that video, your emergency lights are on, correct?
Yes.
And the other deputies' emergency lights are on, correct?
Yeah.
And as you're pulling up, do you recall seeing Mr. on the phone or something moving around in the car somehow?
I mean, he wasn't, I don't really remember it. I'd have to see the video, but I recall.
Well, hold tight. I need you to answer. Do you recall or do you need to see the video? Good either way, but we need to be clear before you answer.
I'd be more comfortable seeing the video.
Okay. Is it fair to say that if it shows him moving about in the car on your in-car video, then would have been fair for you to see it? Your body camera captured something?
Yeah, I mean, if my body camera sees it, then, I mean, there's a good chance I see it. It sits off at an angle a little bit, so it may have a better view, especially the way the vehicle was. It may see something I didn't see. But.
Well, let's talk about officer safety then. So as you're approaching a vehicle, officer safety is pretty paramount, correct?
Yeah. Well, typically we don't approach vehicles. We call people out of vehicles.
Is that what you did in this case?
Well, I don't recall, but that would be the typical way to do it.
I'm not worried about typical. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not worried about typically. What happened in this case?
I don't recall if we tried to call them out on the PA system first or not.
Would that be on your camera?
It would have been if
the timeline
started it sooner.
So you, one way or another, whether you try to call them out, you don't recall, but you approach the vehicle, correct?
We did.
Where was your patrol car parked before you got out of the vehicle?
Just a matter of feet away from his rear bumper of his vehicle.
You initially pulled in and parked perpendicular?
No, I was behind him. The other deputy pulled up and was to his side. He was the one that would be like more towards the front of the vehicle. Okay, for clarification purposes, let's try and build this out like a clock. So Mr. vehicle is sitting facing 12 o'clock north at the gate 5 to 10 feet away. Is that accurate? Yes. So that's facing 12. Your vehicle pulls in. Mm-hmm. Where's the front of your vehicle compared to his vehicle using a clock? Probably about 6:30.
So it's 6:30, and is your vehicle directly in line with, or is it perpendicular to his vehicle? Or sitting at some type of angle?
Mine was directly behind him.
And was your vehicle, you mentioned on direct that you put bumpers on a car. Yeah. Did your vehicle touch his vehicle?
I don't believe so. It may be close, but I don't, like I said, I have to watch the video to be able to recall that. So either in putting a bumper on a vehicle, it's not uncommon for police officers actually to do a light love tap on a vehicle to verify nothing gets away, correct? Well, it's not that anything gets away. We want to stop a possible intoxicated driver from waking up if they are sleeping, like the call originally said, and driving away or driving through into the intersection of traffic. So that's why we do that. Sure. Same thing on a felony vehicle or all different types of reasons you would want to do that, correct? That's correct. Of which potentially DUI is one of them. So you mentioned that as you pulled up, the van was backing up. Would that be on video? It is. It is on video. All right. And you said that it pulled forward? It either pulled forward and backed up or... I would like to see the video. Yeah, I think it'd be best just the officer would like to see it if we can maybe reopen direct, I guess. I don't know.
So we had some problem with the courtroom Wi-Fi in that it wasn't working properly. They're trying to upgrade the system and it's just not working.
All right, I'll just take it under advisement. I'll watch a video on my office. Okay, Mr. Lauder, you can continue your question.
Do you recall whether the other vehicle was there at the time, originally? The caller? So I believe, off of what I remember from memory, is we pull him out, we stand him back up, we don't detain him because after we removed him from the vehicle, we didn't think that he was an immediate threat anymore. Placed him in front of my partner's patrol car, and we started having a conversation. We asked him if he needs medical treatment, if he has any medical injuries, which he states no. He goes on to say, when I asked him if he's been drinking, he said yeah. Then we had the conversation about, he said a couple, and I believe the... So my question was, do you recall whether the other vehicle was there, based on the video? I know within 30 seconds or so of having a conversation with him, the vehicle did show up because I walked by and talked to him. All right, so originally when you ran up and seen the vehicle's not there, it does show up a few minutes later? Yes. All right. Have you ever had to respond in your profession to gated communities before? Yeah. Have you ever had to wait for the gate to open up at a gated community? So have you ever had that circumstance where you've seen a vehicle having to wait for a gate to open up, malfunctioning or otherwise?
Give me a minute. I'm going to try to get him.
So there is explanations outside of
we got to go through
someone passed out or medical emergency that would explain what's going on here, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a possibility he was waiting on the gate to open.
He's driving a work truck?
Do you know him? Or?
A work van, yes.
But he's the same guy who...
And he was parked in a location where someone behind him could press the buttons to the access code? He wasn't blocking that?
I'm not sure about that.
You stated that the backing up was unusual behavior when he backed up when you first pulled in, correct?
Right. So based off of my memory, what I recall was as we were pulling in, he's backing up, but like really slowly, and then as we're pulling in, he starts moving forward, I believe is what. What I recall.
Did you recall seeing that on the video just now? Is that depicted on the video? Or is that unclear but from the video?
I'm sorry, I wasn't really paying attention because I thought we were...
Understandable. I don't know if it was an acceptable answer. I get it. You eventually moved the car, though, correct? Or the van?
I did.
And to move that van, you had to back up.
I did.
So not necessarily unusual behavior when you did it, but when he did it, it's unusual?
Yeah, because, well, you want my opinion?
Sure.
Yeah, because I was moving in a direction where I was backing up away to the curb, away from traffic. He was backing up in a manner that was straight forward back.
With no cars behind him, correct?
Our cars were behind him. So.
Right. And that's when he stopped, put it in drive, and pulled back forward, correct?
Sure. Yes.
And at the time, your emergency lights were on, correct?
They were on as we were coming into the community.
And
I can't remember if the call came out as a code 3 call or not.
And you guys tactically parked around him, correct?
We were trying to go bumper on bumper because that's what the call was.
Sure, I'm not trying to use tactical from an Orange County Sheriff's Office policy standpoint. I'm just trying to say tactically sound. Use tactical procedures in order to put yourself in a position of advantage, correct?
Yes.
You parked in a blind spot behind him so you could have overwatch, another perpendicular to prevent crossfire.
Right.
And both of your lights shining towards the defendant's vehicle and all of your emergency lights on. At that point in time, did you have any reasonable suspicion or probable cause to conduct a traffic stop? Can
I see the report again, please?
So, do you not recall?
All right, let's talk about this for a few minutes. This is a critical point of the motion to suppress. The officer, as I go into the question about his lights and the tactical parking, he confuses, or we have a miscommunication about the word tactical park. Because with the sheriff's office, they have a term in their policy that talks about tactical park. Tactical park is a way you stop a car in a high-risk situation. You actually crash into the car at slow speeds. It's a high risk. You'd rather do that than have somebody get hurt by a flight. So that's what tactical parking a vehicle is. It's a specific tactic. That's not what I was referring to here, though. I was referring to general tactics. You know, like, hey, it's better to have a high position over your enemy because you shoot down upon them than to be lower and shooting up. The way they parked the vehicles was a tactically sound maneuver to prevent crossfire. And it also goes towards a certain factor of the detention. So I'm trying to show here that these officers were acting in a way that anyone sitting inside that work van would recognize as a detention and not being free to go. Because at that point in time, when we have a seizure, a constitutional seizure for the Fourth Amendment purpose, that is what the point in time a person is detained by police power. So at what point was he detained by police power here? And the activation of those lights, which were happening instantaneously upon arrival, shows that he was detained as soon as police officers get there. So this is a critical step for me to establish in my Fourth Amendment argument, or laying out the foundation for the Fourth Amendment argument. The judge didn't 100% agree with me, but it was definitely critical to getting this suppressed. Let's move on.
Do you not recall?
Without seeing my report, I don't recall there was other probable cause for traffic.
Okay. Would seeing a copy of a report help refresh your recollection?
Would seeing a copy of your police report help refresh your recollection? That is a key legal term right there, because a police officer has to testify based upon their memory of the incident. So literally, he would look at his police report, read it over, look up and say, my memory's been refreshed, and then he would testify to what he remembers was in his police report. Refreshing recollection is the most important part. Remember, it has to come from his memory, though. He can't read it from here.
No, I didn't document any citations for anything else, so.
So when you arrive on scene, or when you're dispatched to some type of vehicle blocking an entryway, correct?
Yes.
Are you the one who called?
With somebody, you don't recall the details of what you were communicated, but there's somebody that called this in. Did you know that person's name?
It's in the call notes.
Do you know the person's name right now?
I do not.
Did you ever get her name or phone number when you spoke to her?
No.
Did she tell you that she didn't want to be involved? Any type of verification on who this person was?
to see the video to see what our conversation entailed.
Do you recall if you saw her license? At the point in time, you were investigating two different things. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You had two different things going through your mind at the time, correct?
I had several different things going through my mind.
Okay. Well, is it fair to say that one of them is possibly the car blocking the entrance, medical emergency, whatever you're going to call that, correct? That's one potential that you're investigating?
It's always yeah, potentially.
And then the other is...
This is a critical part of the motion to suppress. I'm trying to establish at what point the Fourth Amendment kicks in. The Fourth Amendment, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, protects people against unreasonable search and seizure by the police. A search and seizure takes place when a traffic stop happens. So I'm trying to identify the exact moment in time where there was a constitutional seizure under the Fourth Amendment. Once we find that exact moment in time, my game plan then shifts to determine whether the officer had the reasonable suspicion or probable cause at that point in time. Now, I've clearly identified it here based upon the officer's testimony that when they pulled into the apartment complex, the lights were on. The lights were on. And we know that Mr. was moving around and could see the lights. So the lights are on and that's a stop command by the police and Mr. can see that. We have a Fourth Amendment seizure. Now we have to determine, did the officer have any cause at that point in time to stop the vehicle? My argument's no. The officer said he had nothing in addition beyond the 911 call. So you got the 911 call about a vehicle. Is that enough? That's a question for you. Is that enough? Answer down in the comments. Is a 911 call about a vehicle in this situation enough based on what the officer said to justify a Fourth Amendment seizure or a traffic stop?
At the point in time, you were investigating two different things. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You had two different things going through your mind at the time, correct?
I had several different things going through my mind.
Okay. Well, is it fair to say that one of them is possibly the car blocking the entrance, medical emergency, whatever you're going to call that, correct? That's one potential that you're investigating?
It's always yeah, potentially.
And then the other is some type of DUI or criminal activity. Is that fair? Is there other things you were investigating with regard to?
All right, this is a kind of crappy question on my part. When I'm asking the officer about he's only thinking about two things, of course he's thinking about 100 different things. But if you think about it from a bigger picture scale, there's two major events going on here. You have the medical emergency that he's dealing with, and he has to investigate that aspect of it. And then he has a potential criminal violation. So certainly has other things he's worried about, the radio and, officer safety and all that, and many things. But there's two primary circumstances that he's investigating my client for, and they're both different. Meaning the standard for a detention for a medical emergency is different than the standard for detention of an arrest. If the officer is operating under some type of concern of medical condition, there's a lot more room for good faith exception. But the police officer is conducting a criminal investigation and the medical emergency is no longer an issue. At that point in time, we still have the strict standard of constitutional muster. So that's where I'm going here, trying to understand that.
I was trying to break it down to two, but you said there were many things.
Again, I'd have to look at the call notes from the CAD screen and see what they say.
I don't have those, sir. So you don't have a memory of anything else?
Not that I recall off the top of my head.
And at the point in time that you see him moving around on the inside of the vehicle, as displayed by the video, the medical emergency dissipated at that point in time, correct?
It's not necessarily true.
Not necessarily true?
Right. It could be diabetic, having some kind of diabetic issues, which is common with impairment.
Excuse me, we're not there yet because we're just going to diagnosis here. You're pulling up on scene, and I'm trying to get a view of what you have and what information you have. So you're pulling up on scene, lights activated, you see him moving around in the car. At some point in time, you're concerned for medical emergency.
Objection, Your Honor. Defense is testifying, please.
Question.
Overrule.
At some point in time, that dissipates, correct?
The fact that it's a medical emergency dissipates?
The fact that you're investigating. As you roll up on scene, you're conducting an investigation, correct?
Yeah, the fact that the medical emergency dissipates is the time when I asked him if he was having medical problems once we had him out of the vehicle standing upright in front of the other patrol car. And he said, no, I don't have any medical issues. Something to that effect. That's when the medical emergency dissipates.
Take a few minutes afterwards, add a comment in your thoughts. Trying to improve the quality of these to make a good presentation, let you guys know about the Fourth Amendment, let you know about how to defend cases. I need your input to get better. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing.
What constitutes a medical emergency?
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Anything from drug overdoses to insulin to having a heart attack, a stroke. I mean, there's numerous medical emergencies.
So your default thinking medical emergency when somebody's sitting in a car moving, that's your thought?
It's possible, yeah.
I guess there's many things that are possible. Is it reasonable? Does that give you reason to believe that?
I've had situations where people were, ask a question again?
I'll withdraw the question. Your audio kicks in approximately 1 minute in, correct? We discussed that?
It clicks in. Yeah, whenever I hit it, it goes back 60 seconds.
Backtracks. So 60 seconds after we start watching is when you hit the button.
Mm-hmm.
That was just before knocking on the window, correct?
Get out of the car.
Do you recall what you said when you knocked on the window?
As I walk up to the vehicle, I'm asking them to roll down the window, step out of the vehicle. Based on my recollection of what happened.
And approximately how many traffic stops have you done?
Thousands.
In thousands of traffic stops, your voice generally carries inside. Do you believe in this circumstance he would be able to hear you? I guess what I'm trying to ask.
Sure, I'm pretty loud.
And you're making repeated commands as you walk up?
That would be typically what I do. I don't recall how many commands on this traffic stop.
And then you pound on the window?
That's correct.
And who opens the window? Or who opens the door?
I open.
You open the door. And then what happened?
I asked them to step out of the vehicle. You can see me making the motions. Step out of the vehicle, sir.
What was the purpose of having him step out of the vehicle?
So we could determine what the issue is, what's going on. If there's a medical emergency, etc.
What's the purpose of having someone step out of the vehicle for a medical emergency?
Officer safety.
All right, so it's not required for the purposes of determining whether there's a medical emergency going on. It's for your officer safety.
Well, first of all, where we work at in Sector 4, we only do call-outs. We don't approach vehicles. So I can already tell
Deputy,
you.
that's not true. I was a deputy in Sector 4 for a long time.
Well, that's the way we conduct business on my squad where I work at. We do not approach vehicles.
Is there a law that requires you to do call-outs?
No, but it's in our policy that it is
The preferred method.
And preferred method, yes.
Okay. Have you ever done a walk-up traffic stop?
I used to do them all the time when I worked for other agencies, and I will no longer do them if I don't have to.
You did in this case.
I had no choice.
And at what point did you observe or learn that English wasn't Mr. Maldonado's primary language?
So he was able to communicate with us.
Sure, he was able to communicate. You didn't recognize that English wasn't the primary language based on that video?
Could have two languages, yeah, it's possible. I don't know what his primary language is.
Okay. Do you believe there was any difficulty in communicating in English?
Yeah, because he was intoxicated.
What are you doing?
So we have a major change here in the officer's demeanor. I've gotten under his skin a little bit and we're having a back and forth. This really does me well because it's my opinion that this officer is now trying to beat me in court. And if someone is trying to beat me in court, then I can lay out questions that allow him to hang himself. And if he's going to disagree with me on grounds, on very minor points, just to disagree, that works out favorable for me in the end. So.
All right. So you know that it had nothing to do with his ability to understand the English language.
I'm sorry, what?
Do you know that it's due to intoxication and not from his inability to understand the English language?
He seemed to be communicating on the same level that somebody typically within the BAC content of anywhere from 2 to 3, 0.2 to 3 would be communicating.
Where did you get your toxicology degree from?
I did not, but
Oh.
I made.
When have you been declared an expert witness in DUI?
I have not.
How many .20 to .30 cases have you observed?
I've had a few. I don't know the exact number. I'd have to go back and pull them up.
You said you've never been recognized as an expert witness in DUI?
No.
What about alcohol impairment?
No.
What about drug impairment?
Nope.
Have you ever been recognized as an expert witness at all?
No.
So this opinion you're basing is formed off what?
Off of my experiences.
All right. Off of a few .20 to .30?
There's more than a few. I just can't give you the exact number.
Okay.
All right, so let's dive into that for a minute. In court, you're generally not allowed to give expert testimony unless you have the requisite training or life experience within the area of which you're claiming expertise. So a mechanic could probably testify to how a car works if he's worked on this type of car over and over again. A lawyer could testify to the laws and the type of areas where they practice. A police officer who has a vast amount of DUI experience can testify as an expert in DUI. What being an expert does is allows you to draw an opinion based upon a bunch of facts. So they can lay out a scenario and then you can review that scenario and say, yeah, I believe that based upon what I've seen there, this is the logical outcome. Now, that's not to be confused. There's certain things in life that the court says anybody can testify to opinion about that. So for instance, that car was speeding or a car was driving fast. You would have enough lay experience to testify to that, even though it's your opinion. Or the person appeared intoxicated. He was walking like he was intoxicated. Those types of opinions are okay. But when you're talking about something really detailed or detailed at all about a specific niche that isn't commonly known to the community, yeah, that's not going to be acceptable. This guy is not qualified to testify about how a .20 or how a .30 looks. And I get a little bit snarky there. I apologize. I shouldn't have. Where'd you get your toxicology degree from or something like that? But hey, it is what it is. Cross-examination.
Did you at all request for a Spanish speaker to come out?
No.
What was your probable cause to arrest for DUI?
I have the items I listed earlier. The fact that he was unsteady on his feet, smelled of alcohol. I'm unable to follow directions, bloodshot, glassy eyes, thick tongue, slurred speech.
You also charged Mr. Maldonado with resisting without violence, correct?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the report again.
Would seeing a copy of your police report help refresh your recollection?
That's come across a few times now. Would seeing a copy of your report refresh or help refresh your recollection? If a police officer doesn't know the answer to the question, they can use their police report to refresh their memory of the events, and at that point in time, testify about what they remember. It's really a bunch of garbage. The police officer takes the report, he looks at the report, memorizes that line, and then answers the question. But according to the rules of evidence, they're not allowed to do that, even though that's exactly what happens. And then they give the answer.
Yes, we did.
Can you describe which behaviors that was based upon?
That would be his failure to follow commands, exiting the vehicle, where we had to physically extract him from the vehicle.
Did you consider that he may not fully understand the English language when you extracted him from the vehicle?
I don't know if that crossed my mind or not.
Okay, maybe I'm misreading this. You guys have seen the video now. You've heard the comment or the communication back and forth. Do you draw the opinion that there's a English-Spanish problem here from this video? Or do you think this is just strictly intoxication? What are your thoughts? Put those comments down below.
At any point, does it cross your mind during investigations whether someone is able to understand you?
Yeah.
And working the Sector 4 area, a lot of immigrants in that area, correct?
There are immigrants.
And in your interactions with people that don't speak or speak multiple language or English as a second language. Have you ever interacted with them before?
Yes.
And in those interactions and in your training, you may have to delay communications or slow communications to allow them time to process information, correct?
Sometimes, yes.
Here's another scenario where the officer is trying to defeat me. He knows exactly where I'm going, and he's trying to answer a question that I didn't ask in order to move on beyond this point because he knows where it's coming. He knows it's coming.
Did you do that in this case?
Well, regardless if somebody's...
Did you do that in this case, sir?
Did I do what?
Did you slow down your communication to verify that he was able to process the information if English is in fact a second language? Let the video speak for that.
I believe I gave him plenty of time to respond.
You mentioned that he was going to do field sobriety exercises, and he ultimately did not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you advise him that if he refuses, that would be used against him?
What's your address?
He never refused. He said he would do it.
So why didn't you
We
perform?
determined that because he couldn't follow the ban, there was an officer safety risk, and that we were not going to conduct field sobriety exercises.
Wait, there was an officer safety risk?
Yeah.
That's why you didn't perform the field sobriety exercises?
Right, because he kept placing his hands in his pocket. He wouldn't follow commands. He wouldn't listen to us.
At some point in time, did you search him?
We patted him down later for weapon use.
It's a pretty quick fix for an officer safety concern, correct?
Well, that's your opinion. So
I'm asking yours.
I don't.
All right, we're past the stop.
Yes, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay. Any redirect?
So that's cross-examination. Cross-examination is done. The state is now allowed to go back and address any issues that I brought up, but she can't really expand out into a bunch of other things. It has to be something that I brought up on cross. Nothing new.
When you responded to the scene, what information did you know regarding the call you were responding to?
Like I said, I'd have to look at the call notes and see how it was classified. It was a call of a male passed out and a vehicle. The vehicle wasn't moving. They couldn't gain access into the apartment complex.
Okay, so
I don't know how it was classified in the call. If it was a signal 30, a signal 1, like that's stuff that would be in the CAD notes, which is public record.
Okay, so the officer here is talking about signal 30 and signal 1. He's using terminology that's common for police vernacular. Signal 30, man down in this jurisdiction, and then signal 1 is DUI. I think that's all across Florida. That's the radio police code for those particular things. I've got a signal 30 here. That's I've got a man down. If it's signal 30 on the sidewalk, that's a man laying on the sidewalk. Shot dead, sleeping, whatever. He's whatever reason out of it. A signal 1 is a DUI investigation.
so when you were responding, were you responding because this person could be ill or in some way impaired?
Yes.
And when you responded to the scene, did what you see line up with the purpose for your call?
Yes.
How so?
The vehicle was moving back and forth in a slow manner. Even if it is a medical emergency, that's not typical. He hadn't gained access into the community. Approached the vehicle. He wasn't able to follow commands.
And when you arrived on scene and you saw how the vehicle was operating, do you typically see vehicles operating in this fashion?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, so she did a pretty good job there. That's pretty good follow-up questions for him. She's establishing that this is not typical. If it's unusual, that means reasonable suspicion. That she went the direction she had to go. Pretty good read on her part. That is what I would do.
Any recross?
Yeah.
All right, Deputy, is anybody going to need him?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Deputy, you're excused completely. Thank you for coming in. State, do you have any additional witnesses to call?
No, Your Honor.
All right, defense, are you going to call any witnesses?
No.
All right, I'll hear argument from defense, state, and then defense, you get the last word. You may proceed, defense.